nervous. Hey everyone, this video is a little different from my norm, as you can probably tell from the title. I've been putting off making this video for a while, and I'm gonna get a little political in this one. So if that's not your cup of tea, you may move on. You do not have to watch this video. No one is forcing you to watch the video. It's totally okay if you don't want to hear that from me. I know that some people want to go to psychics and keep that separate, and I know that some people like going to psychics that also talk about it. I don't think necessarily that psychics have to talk about it. I don't think every creator needs to be that way, and I totally think that not everyone should, especially if they are not educated on the topic. But as I will speak to later, I am being more and more pushed to kind of dive into it. And I'm really nervous and I'm really scared to make this video, but I'm doing it because I'm being told to. Also because I think it's important right now that I do get political. I'm an American, I live in the US. I'm fortunate enough to live in one of a bluer state here. This is something that I'm passionate about in my own personal life, and I'm feeling more and more called to kind of mix the two. Now, all my content is not going to change overnight. Still going to talk about psychic development. I'm just kind of adding something a little bit more niche, a little bit more prediction oriented, talking about politics, about what's going on globally. I don't know how long I'm going to do this. For all of those who might argue that it's not okay to be political, here's my argument. Politics touches everything. Politics affects every aspect of our lives. Everything is political. The fact that you think that you could possibly separate it from your life is kind of just silly. I think not talking about politics and also saying like, oh, well, I don't want to go there, or I don't want to engage in the negativity. I want you to maybe examine where that comes from, because I do feel like for a lot of white people, me, myself included, especially in the past, that comes from a place of privilege, privilege that, our identity is not at risk, our ways of being, our rights, are not at risk. And so a lot of that is just saying, politics is not affecting me right now, so I'm good. I'm comfortable. I don't have to worry about it. So I'm not going to think about it. And that's privilege. That's the privilege of not having to worry about your identity, your rights literally being at stake. And although I'm a small creator on this app, I think it's been something I've been going back and forth over. And I've decided that, it's something that I don't want to shy away from. And it's something that I want to kind of just dedicate like a corner of my space to speaking about. I also have to acknowledge that I am like a white female with probably a lot of white female audience who's following me. And I know that most of you are probably on the same, like, I don't want to say side but just political leanings as me. But for those who are not, I think I do have a duty to kind of like stand up and like say, hey, this is what's going on, and not just ignore everything that's kind of like happening in the US right now. Now, if you're watching and you're one of my students who's a psychic, I'm not saying by any means that you have to become like a political psychic at all. There is also a more deeper like calling that's been coming through for me, and that's a lot of why I'm doing this as well. So since last November, specifically like when Mars went into Leo, it was in my 12th house. I've just been deep in that inner world, deep with like talking to my guides. I've been just really going over a lot of what's going on in the US just out of my own interest, and they've been pushing me more and more into speaking on the collective. And when I say collective, I really just mean like the group energy. Right now I mostly just read people one-on-one. And like at most I'll maybe make like a YouTube video where I'm like, okay, anybody that comes across this video, that video's for you. But it's a much different territory to read like an entire group of people, the entire globe, the entire US. And so they've been pushing me in that direction. And that's something I don't have a lot of experience with. And I've been very nervous about that, and I've been very much resistant to it. But I've been slowly opening up to it. You probably have seen that I've made my monthly videos more public. I've been adding astrology to them. I've also been talking more about politics even within those. If you're on Patreon, you know that I've been talking about it here and there as well. I've also been talking about it on my podcast when it comes to just astrology or my own personal life, because that's a little bit more of what my podcast is about. But as of the last few months, I've been getting dreams, I've been getting messages that have been coming through, and I've just been recording them, and I've been keeping them up on like a little blog post that I haven't really pushed out. And then I started feeling really pushed to just sit down and record some videos, some secret podcasts that you can find. They're like unlisted and they're kind of like linked in that blog post. So I'm taking a lot of baby steps. And I think a lot of my fear has come from, okay, what type of people will this attract? And I'm really afraid of the comments and what's going to kind of come of diving into this and reading the future, because the future can change. I don't want to become one of those psychics who's always predicting the future and doing it in an unethical way, or trying to scare people, or even like trying to be like, recording all of their predictions so that they can later go and make a compilation and be like, look at me, look at all the things I got right, and we see a lot of that online, and I hate when people do that, because if you guys know me, you know that a lot of what I preach is that the psychic ability is not about being right. If you're going around talking about how right you are all the time, you're kind of missing the whole point of, the basic understanding that psychics can be wrong. But my guides have basically said, I've built up a lot of tough skin over the years, and this is kind of the next step of building up even tougher skin. And so I've accepted the call. I don't think everyone has to when they feel pushed by the universe to do something. But this is something that I've, again, literally since November, back and forth. And now I'm finally like, okay, I think I'm okay with doing this. And a lot of it is just my own fear and my own ego, and I'm gonna get over it. Because I do feel like, when you get messages from spirit, I do think it's really important to honor it. And the last like 2 or 3 weeks, I have been trying to do this work over here. I've been trying to get this done. And the spirit's over here like, no, you're over here, you're gonna do this. And I'm like, but, and they're like, no. And so I feel like at some point you do kind of have to like honor what you're getting, or else you'll stop receiving messages. I think there's a fine line of being like, no, I don't want to do this. This makes me uncomfortable. And no, I can do this. And there's just some self-limiting beliefs, and I know that I want to, but I'm just afraid, and that's kind of like what was really going on here with me. So for those of you who are new to me, mostly I am on my YouTube channel, kind of just teaching about psychic abilities and psychic development. That's a lot of what I do here, and it's what I'm going to continue to do a lot of. But I think my intention with starting to speak about some of the more global things that I'm picking up on, some of these messages that I'm getting, is to provide a lot of hope, to provide clarity, and to also provide preparedness. And I'm definitely not a psychic who just spiritually bypasses things. That's like the popular word. In my opinion, it's just like, I don't, pretend like we have to think all love and light all the time, and that we have to be thinking positive thoughts all the time, or else like, we're never going to have a good life. I think that we have to address the scary stuff. We have to face it. We have to accept that shitty things happen. We have to see it for what it is. And to pretend like none of that is happening is just kind of like silly to me. So I'm a psychic who's not going to shy away from those things. And so again, this is all just disclaimer, fair warning. If you're not in that mental headspace to receive those messages, you do not have to like receive those messages. Because here's the thing, what I have been picking up from spirit has been a lot hopeful, yes, but also a lot of, I don't want to use the word warnings, but a lot of like, be ready, be prepared, be discerning. And I think I'm paying attention to a lot of what's going on in the US because I care, and I'm worried it's affecting me. Even, as a white person in a blue city, it's starting to like affect me and my family. And, I'm watching kids being ripped away from their family. I'm literally watching citizens being kidnapped, in the streets, in unmarked cars. We have a president who's consolidating power into just one tiny branch of government, ignoring all the rules of the Constitution. We have religious extremism going on right now. We've got this group of Proud Boys that are terrorizing people, but I do think that they are very quickly getting outnumbered. These ICE facilities, they're not letting these government officials go in to check them like they are normally allowed to do, and we're hearing reports of them being just like awful conditions, lawmakers being assassinated. Like, it is just getting out of hand and out of control. We literally have a dictator right now, and I am not afraid to say that. We have a dictator that is taking over. And that is just fact. And I see this affecting my friends. I see it affecting my clients. I see it affecting my neighbors and my family, even in small ways. And it's beginning to affect even me and my family in tiny ways. And I can't even imagine what it's doing to people who are even more marginalized than I am. And I think that's why a lot of these messages have been coming to me, is because I'm paying attention, I'm educating myself on these subjects, like I know what's going on in the news. So there's this kind of combination of I'm paying attention, I also care, but I'm also intuitive and I'm psychic and I'm tapped into my guides, and I kind of have a platform, albeit small. But now, I don't think I'm some sort of savior or that my messages are gonna reach the masses. Like, I've fully understood that. I feel like there's a lot of people that will probably come across my videos that are very anxious about what's going on. And I feel like that's who these videos are going to be for, or that's who these podcasts are going to be for. I'm supposed to provide these messages for kind of the people who are also not paying attention, who might need to feel a little bit more prepared around what's going on, because I do feel like there is some element of like educating and helping people be a little bit forewarned and prepared. But then also, like, I'm tuning into the doomsday anxiety of like, oh my gosh, World War III, the world is gonna end, and it's not. Like, I can tell you right now, it's not. We're gonna be okay. So I do feel like part of this is I'm speaking to my overly anxious friends out there who need to bring down the catastrophizing. Now, I'm not going to get into all of my predictions in this video. I'm just going to give you like a highlight of them, just so that you can kind of get a feel for if they resonate with you. And I will also be providing some just resources at the end of the video for how you can also help and support everyone, even if it's not protesting. Like, that is just one tiny way you can help, but it does not have to be the only way that you can help. Now, I know I'm going to point a lot of people back to this video, so I want to just give a disclaimer here. Before these predictions, I can be wrong. That is one thing that we don't see enough psychics saying. I can be wrong. The future can change. And I'm still trying to kind of nail down how reading big, large groups work. Some psychics are much better at it than me. But I'm kind of doing this mix right now of working with astrology, my own intuition, and also just like literal like news and like being educated on like the actual like geopolitics of what's going on. But I can be wrong, and I will absolutely admit when I am wrong. I have been wrong in the past, and I will be wrong in the future. So again, this is not me putting out predictions to be like, ha ha ha, look that I'm right. And I know I'm going to get those comments, and I just have to be ready for that. But like I always say, reading the future, you're reading the energy as it is right now. So if I read the energy right now and you're like, should I go to school A or school B? And I'm like, well, I'm really feeling like you're gonna choose school B. And then what happens tomorrow is your grandma dies or something, and you just get this massive amount of inheritance, and then you all of a sudden have all the money that you needed to go to school A, and then you decide you're gonna go to school A. That's how the future can change. And so a lot of this can happen with any of this, and there's a lot of variables, there's a lot of people, there is free will as well. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, is a lot of people go to psychics thinking that psychics pick up on like one, like there's an absolute definite future. I don't believe in that, because I believe in free will. I believe in partial determinism. I believe some things are fated, some things are going to happen no matter what. But I do believe people still have choice. So that being said, that's why I think psychics can't predict the future with total 100% accuracy. So you should not expect that of them by any means. And that is why I'm so freaking hesitant to jump into this, is because normally I like to just read the here and now or the past. I don't like going in the future. But they're like, too bad, Lauren, buckle up. So with that out of the way, let's get into the highlights of what I predicted. Again, I will point you at the end of the video where you can read more, listen more to where I've talked about these more in detail. What is happening right now in the US? I should have said, I'm recording this on June 19th, 2025. I have known since the start of this year that all of this was coming. Like, I knew there was gonna be civil unrest. I knew that Trump, I think I can say his name. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out my YouTube community guidelines and what's gonna get me like kicked or booted off. But I've known that he's gonna push it too far. I've known that he's gonna try to do the whole third term limit thing. I've known that he's gonna overreach. I've known that he's gonna try to go into like dictatorial control. I've known he's gonna try to like consolidate power. Like, it's just like, no duh. I knew this from his first term. When I saw him running and I saw the things that he was doing, when he left office that first time, I remember talking to my husband because I was pregnant at the time, and I told my husband, if he comes back, we need to seriously consider leaving, because he will do all of these things that I just said. But more specifically, I also know that we're going to be getting into something this summer, specifically July through August, because of astrology. And it's going to be involving a lot of countries, and that's something that I kind of covered in my forecast. I think that I'm still trying to figure out the astrology. I'm kind of like off here and there, mostly timing wise, but for the most part, it's kind of like come true, and it's freaked me out a little bit. And I had a podcast with Karen. Oh gosh, I can't remember when we recorded that, but even back then, we talked about premonitions and having premonitions, and I kept telling her, I've just got this bad feeling. I've just got this bad feeling, and I don't know what it is, and we kind of like talked about it. And I think what that bad feeling is some of the energy that's about to come up, and I still don't quite know what it is, and I'm trying to pinpoint it. I have some guesses, and I'll talk about that in the podcast, but I've been basically kind of pulling all of these pieces together. I think that universe has been giving me signs and breadcrumbs here and there from, you know, the news. I'll pull pieces here and there. I'll pull pieces from the astrologers that I'll listen to. I'll pull pieces from my own intuition, like I'll hear things, I'll see things, and I'll just be putting all of these things together, and I'll kind of just like, it's just a really unique way that I'm picking it up, but it's the way that I talk to my guides, and it's the way I pick up messages any other way. So I do feel like this is all part of a bigger picture of he needs to be elected so that he can push the boundaries too far so people can wake up and we can fix the whole system. And obviously now you're probably like, yeah, no duh, but I was saying this back in 2016. And I had that gut feeling back then that it could end in something like this. I had this gut feeling that it could get pushed way too far. And back then I was kind of like, oh, maybe that's just my anxiety, maybe I'm catastrophizing, but now I'm here and I'm like, oh no, it was real. I wish I would have recorded more of that, but I'm doing it now. It's also really interesting because I had a really crazy intuitive hit about the whole Bug's Life trending sound even way back then in 2016, which is now like a whole thing on TikTok right now. But when March and April rolled around, I started to hear other astrologers say things, and I was just kind of like sharing what they were picking up on, and those started to like hit, and I was like, whoa, okay, now I'm really gonna start to pay attention here. For example, there was an Aries eclipse in March that often indicates some sort of prelude to war. Guess what happened on the Aries eclipse day? Trump threatened to bomb Iran. Like, there was indicators on that day of what was going to happen in the future. according to astrology. In May, Saturn moved into Aries on the 24th. And we often talk about like the day that something moves into a sign is kind of like a foreshadowing or a precursor of like what the entire transit's going to be about. So it's like, hey, this is what the whole 3 years might look like of Saturn being in Aries. And so that day, a lot of different things happen, but one of those being Russia attacking Ukraine and I think it was missiles at Ukraine. But yeah, so that kind of maybe indicates some things going on there in the next couple years. And again, if you're like, well, yeah, no duh, there were indicators of this in the past, but I've only been looking into them recently. So it's why I'm starting to pay more attention now to see what we can figure out even in 2026 and beyond. Now, the No Kings protest day, before this, the energy, I was so skeptical. And some of the secret podcasts and stuff that I've recorded, I've talked so much about how like there were two futures that I was seeing for the US. One was like we totally fall and give in to this kind of like power that's taking over, and it's kind of like the end of this empire, which astrologically kind of lines up with some of the things that have happened in the past with what's coming up with the astrology in July. But when the No Kings protest happened, I have so much faith now. I have so much faith that the people are actually going to stand up and protest. So I'm actually feeling so much better about that now. And that just goes to show how we can shift that energy. We can change the future because we all saw each other. We all saw, oh, wow, we all don't like this. We all don't want this. And we're all more likely to keep that effort moving. And that's where I think this Neptune and Aries energy is coming in. We're getting this idealization of the warrior. Fighting back is going to be the new cool thing. Again, I've talked about all of this in my previous kind of like March, April podcast. I'll be kind of like covering this all again. And so now, thankfully, we've got people standing up, we've got people fighting back, and we're sharing information like never before. And I think this is like a really key piece that I'm really honed in on, that I've also like connected the dots as well with astrology. And I think millennials are actually a huge part of this revolution and this movement. And I spoke about this in my secret podcast about how the millennials, what we're about to go through here in summer, we're actually like, just side note, we are like the same astrologically to the revolutionaries who founded the Americas. We're a very tiny group of people basically born with Pluto and Scorpio. It's very rare to be born with Pluto and Scorpio, and hey, millennials, we're it. And basically this summer, Pluto and Leo's boomer generation, they're going to have a really rough time, but it's not going to be without fight, and it's not going to be without some really rough stuff that's going to come up. And so what I've been telling everybody now is to tune into your gut feeling. You came here at this time for a reason, and that is something they keep telling me to share over and over again. You came at this time for a reason. And it might not be to protest, it might not be to be on the front lines and fight, but there is a reason, a purpose that you are serving, but everybody has a different role. And again, I'll talk to all the different ways you can help at the end. Moving on to the future predictions that I'm getting. Again, not all of these are positive, so skip this if you're not in that place to receive them. Again, things are going to get really intense here right around the 4th and the 13th, and that's kind of why I timed this video when I did. Because Uranus is about ready to move into Gemini. That is the Uranus return of the US. But it's basically whenever Uranus has gone back into Gemini, it's unfortunately coincided with some pretty serious stuff. And this is how I know astrology is just like so powerful with its patterns, because the last time it's happened, Revolutionary War, Civil War, and World War II. Not saying that that's going to happen, but I am kind of saying it's going to happen. I do think we're already in it, honestly. I do think it's not going to be war in the sense that we think of war, in the sense of just like pew, pew, pew. I mean, it might be, but I think it's maybe a little bit more of a cyber war, maybe a war on information, war with like goods and services, stuff like that. I don't want to like dive too much into it here. And one thing I want you to keep in mind around the 4th through the 13th, panic and paranoia are more of a thing than actual reality. And I'm going to come back to that when I actually speak to the more hopeful stuff in a second. My July forecast is not going to be one that you want to miss. I'm going to go over kind of the stuff that's going to come up because July into August and September, they are kind of like the pilot episode for the next couple of years of what it's going to be like in America. And again, I don't want that to scare you because again, I do see it all for the better. It's just going to be a little bit of a struggle. Now we are going to get a little bit of a reprieve in September according to astrology, but then it's supposed to pick back up again. With astrology, that's the world. You know, it might not be your life specifically. You can be having a great time in your personal life, but that doesn't mean, you know, your whole life is going to match everything that's going on globally. I think like for a lot of us in Patreon, we had a really great March, even though what was happening in the world in March was not so good. But I have had dreams of buildings collapsing. I have had warnings that have kind of scared me and spooked me. Again, I'm not trying to like scare anybody else here, but more so just kind of like send out a message of like, hey, does this resonate? Does this feel correct for you? If so, here's where to kind of like follow the next like thread of wherever I'm taking you. A lot of this though feels like it's very heavily involved with AI. A lot of it is very heavily involved with climate change. A lot of it is, you know, for us here in the US, it's like that homegrown terrorism, and this is like nothing new to us. It's, you know, the far right extremism, it's the Christian nationalism, like it's not necessarily like foreign. I do think there could be foreign things that are happening. I do actually think there are, but I think we're gonna see a lot of like AI kind of cross over the boundaries and need to get pulled back. I think religion is going to be called into question, and something that I've been like trying to really figure out is like metaphysics and psychics and intuition stuff. Like I can't really tell if that's going to be like more prominent or like more judged and like more poo-pooed. I can't, like I'm trying to figure that piece out, and I flop between the two, but there is a shift of that, and I do feel like it's related to AI. And for a lot of these more negative messages that I feel like are coming through, I do feel like being forewarned is forearmed. And so again, if you're in the spot to receive those, awesome. If you are not, do not go looking for them. But I also feel like for some of you who don't want to get caught off guard, that information is helpful and powerful, because if you're like, nah, I don't want to deal with this, thanks, bye, you know, you have that information to then go, you know, make your own informed decisions. And again, that should be your decision, not something that you solely base off of me or anybody else, you know, because again, I can be wrong. It should be something that you're already feeling in your gut, and you just take it along with any of your other friends' advice, your partner's advice, you know, and use your own discernment and trust your own gut. Now, I want to talk about the hope to be had, because that's like a lot of the messages that I have been getting, even like before any of this has been happening. Like I've been told to write down things and say things before the scary stuff even happened. And I think that was because like even I doubt it now, and I needed to hear it before the scary stuff was happening. Again, I don't think the world is ending, at least not in the sense of, again, nuclear war, we're not going to blow ourselves up. Another positive note, I had 3 different dreams, unprompted, unasked for, this year, of the burnt Cheeto man dying. Not saying that that's going to happen, but I do feel like it will. I mean, it will eventually. A lot of psychics have picked up on that. A lot of people who are not even psychic have been picking up on that. I do think probably even to the non-psychic person, you can look at him. There is something going on. There is something going on. It is being hidden, and we probably won't know until something happens, but I think there has been things that have happened to his health, and it's just being hidden from the public because you don't want to share that, you know, it shows weakness, and it would call into question, you know, his ability to lead. Again, the transit that I was talking about with paranoia and fear. The cool thing about what we're going through specifically in July, we also had a peak of it in March of 2025, We're also going to have a peak of it again in February. This is called the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Peak paranoia and fear. But a lot of it sometimes is not founded in reality. And it's one of those, like, it dies off, and then people look back and they were like, wow, that was really ridiculous. We were a little bit silly. That transit, the last time this transit came around, peak McCarthyism, you know, when the whole McCarthy, you're a communist, everyone's a communist thing was happening, and everyone was paranoid and calling everybody out. The last time that transit happened as well was peak Cold War, which obviously we know, you know, there were some bad things that did happen. The escalation of, like, we're going to do it, 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 and then nobody does it. Like, that's that energy that we're about to go through here in July. So keep that in mind. When tensions are high, it's going to peter off. It's going to peter off. I also, from the moment he got into office, I have never felt like he was going to last more than a year. I don't think he's going to be there longer than next January or February at the latest, either because of his health or getting removed. I just, like, January, February 2026, I think is the absolute latest he's going to be there. Who's going to take over after him? Trying to figure that out. I don't know yet. There's like, it's like when I see the future, there's a lot of different versions. And it's hard to know because all the pieces haven't fallen in place yet. Again, I feel like the most intense we will see is kind of what we're seeing now, like civil unrest, issues in cities here and there, maybe like 1 or 2 or 3 events that are really kind of violent and intense, but it's not going to be full all-out war. Like everywhere, doomsday, the movies that you've got in your brain, right? Another thing that they've been like showing me and telling me, because I've been very worried and very paranoid, like, are we just like the next, is this the next Hitler? Is this the next Germany? Are we falling into that? And they've been like, no. You know, I've been like given little pieces here and there or been told, and it's like, no, it's different this time because the people are fighting back. We are fighting back way more than the people did back then. And I think a lot of that is due to, one, social media. We are much more interconnected than the people were back then. Because basically, you do something wrong, somebody's got it on video. These people cannot get away with anything now. Everything is on video. The truth will out. Is that the like phrase? Like, you can't get away with anything. And, you know, the other point of like social media and interconnectedness is like, we are able to share information. We're able to organize. We're able to, like, you know, hype each other up and just, you know, connect with each other. And I think that's on our side in so many ways. It does make me wonder if they're going to like take down TikTok eventually, and some of these other platforms to try to like stifle that. And although we're going through a lot of these aches and pains as a country, I do think that a lot of it is restructuring for the better. But it's not going to come without challenges. I do think it is the birth of something new and better, but birth is hard, birth is challenging, birth is painful. And there is a astrological formation that I've got my eye on that's coming up next spring, that kind of signals the start of something new. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna like just be, you know, overnight the start of an amazing new era, but I do think, you know, there's gonna be something that happens that we'll be able to look back and pinpoint, like, that's when it all got better, that's when the tide started to turn. And so that's what gives me a lot of hope right now. I do think that this old way is dying out. I think that the boomer generation, the Pluto and Leo generation, they're making their last power grab, you know? And again, they're pushing these boundaries too far so that the collective can realize and say, actually, no, this is not how we want to function moving forward. You know, we can fix what's not working. We can make better laws. We can change what's not working. I think on the other side of this, we're going to see improvements to healthcare, to immigration. I don't know if it's going to take a year or 5 years, but I do think even, you know, just climate change. I think a lot of this will, on the other side, be for the better. Even AI regulation, like, drastic change can't come slowly over time. Sometimes it has to come from systems being so broken that we're forced to fix them. And I think that's where we're at right now. One thing I keep picking up too in a lot of different readings is that there's like some point at which people won't have to worry about like money anymore. And don't get me wrong, like I could be wrong on that. I'm not saying like don't go pay your bills or something, but I just keep getting this sense of like UBI, like universal basic income, or something happening. I don't know, maybe this is just like one place or one country, but I wonder if we're going to figure out some sort of system where like everybody's taken care of. Again, maybe I could be wrong there, but I keep getting that message a lot. So I wonder if that's like a possibility in the future. So one thing I want you to remember as we're going through this summer, it might get worse before it gets better, but the only constant is change. It has to reach a breaking point. It has to get better. It's not just going to get worse and worse and worse. It has to change. It has to stop. It will not be this way forever. It will be fixed. It will have to be pulled back and be repaired. And if you're ready for my craziest take yet, my tinfoiliest tinfoil hat take, I do not think that Trump won this election. Bear with me. Give me a chance. I could be wrong. I don't think he did. And I know that sounds a little crazy, nutso, tinfoil hat, but this is something that I felt just off about before the election. I felt off about it after the election, but I let it go. I let it go for a couple months and I was like, no evidence, no proof. I'm not going to be one of those people that, kind of just bases something purely off gut. I'm going to, just let it go. But recently, there's actually been a lot of proof to provide that evidence. And so now I'm kind of like coming back around to, oh, geez, maybe that was intuitive and those hits were correct. So I know I'm going to lose some people there, but if you're feeling the same or you want to know more, I go into this a little bit more in depth in my secret podcast. But again, I could be wrong and I will not be afraid to admit that I'm wrong there if I am. However, I do not think I am. So much so that I'm not afraid to put this up on YouTube. That's how strongly I feel about it. So moving forward, I think it's going to be so important that you have community, that you have friends, that you have family, whether it be chosen family around you, to kind of like help, get through this rough time. I think it's also going to be important to put down your phone. We cannot take in all of this information. It is too much. It is going to be so important that you have a good self-care routine and you don't consume everything. Even if you need to download like an app blocker so you get off those apps sometimes, I think is going to be important. I do think it's also important not to bury your head in the sand and be so uninformed that you're not paying attention to what's going on. I heard somebody talk about that a lot of it is not people actually avoiding it because it's negative, but people avoid engaging in politics because they actually don't know where to position themselves. It's more that they don't understand where they fit in the mix of all the information. And that the answer is just to kind of pay attention, learn, and educate yourself so that you do know where to kind of like fit yourself in the sea of information. And again, you get to decide your role in this. You get to decide how you show up and how you help. It doesn't always have to be protesting. And I'm just sharing off a list on my phone here. You can help people. You can take them to and from places. You can drive people to clinics. You can help house people who are marginalized, who need that housing, who need that help. You can educate, you can share information online. Even if you have skills, you can share your skills around like self-defense, fact checking, science. This is saying like map reading, psychology. A lot of us have those skills in those certain areas. Like for me, I've got a very specific skill in intuition. I'm going to teach people how to use their intuition so that they can understand what's my intuition versus what's not. You can distribute information, distribute flyers. You can find local groups and help them just get the word out. You can volunteer, soup kitchens, shelters, anywhere that people are needed in your community, in your neighborhood. Even if you're more artistic, you can create art to share, to get the word out. I do think artists have a very special place in all of this. Art helps us understand these concepts and understand what's going on in the world. It has a chance to be viral and help people like really grasp the situation of what's going on, so you could communicate through art. You can march, obviously. You can protest if you feel comfortable doing that. I've been to a couple myself. It was really nerve-wracking at first, but if you find a good group to go with, it actually can be really empowering, and you can, stick to keeping it peaceful and safe, if you're doing it right. You can't even get involved in your religious communities. There are some religious churches, religious churches, metaphysical, what is the word? Spiritualist churches. I was like, spiritualist churches. You could get involved there and help people out who are going through a tough time there. Financially supporting. If you have the extra funds, you can equally just put your money towards something. I contributed $5 to Act Blue every single month to help them pay for billboards, specifically in red states that say, hey, this person helped, your constituent basically helped fund taking away Medicare from people. So there's all sorts of things like that. And obviously there's so much more that you can do beyond this. And if there's anybody else out there who's involved and has some good suggestions, please share those down in the comments below so that we all can get some more ideas, share some resources, even people that you follow or organizations that you follow. Please, please, please share those so that we all can learn from each other. So if I haven't totally lost you yet and you're resonating with this, I will probably continue to mostly just talk about this on my podcast, and I'll probably do video podcasts or just solo podcasts. And that's probably where you can find most of the content here. If there's just little stuff, I'll probably be uploading it to my predictions blog, which I will have linked down below. Again, I'll definitely be covering the astrology of everything at the top of each month in my monthly forecast. And early access will be available to those on Patreon. I'll also probably be sharing more of this on TikTok and Threads, just because those are platforms I'm newer on, and so I don't really have an audience, and I don't really mind if I'm losing people because I don't really have anybody to lose. And I also have some resources in my Instagram highlights reel, so feel free to check that out as well. But if you're watching and you're kind of cool, not super interested, maybe you're outside of the US or this isn't super affecting you, totally understand. YouTube content is mostly going to just stay the same, as well as my Instagram. I might share things here and there. I don't really know what this is going to look like. I basically was just told to get on here and make it official, and then I'm gonna figure it out from there. And again, if you're new, if you're coming here because you've already found me through this content, just know that most of the stuff here on YouTube is primarily just psychic development stuff. I coach people, I teach people how to understand their psychic abilities. We also have a Patreon group where we do a lot of that practice, and a lot of helping each other through understanding our abilities and reading each other, and there's a lot of extra perks that you get over there. I also have a lot of courses as well that you can sign up for if you are feeling your own intuitive hunches and you're wanting to understand and explore a little bit more about opening up your abilities and kind of moving past those blocks and strengthening those psychic abilities. We also have a psychic development group that should be up and available to everybody as of now, I think. Yeah, it should be up and available to everybody now. It's not at the time of recording this, but the Psychic Development Society is basically getting started. It's in the bare bones beginning right now, but it is going to be the new home of all my courses. It's going to take the place of my Facebook group. It's also going to take the place of Patreon in the future. And it's going to be the new home of just kind of a lot of my content. Not YouTube and stuff, but just it's going to be a community. It's just going to be a place where we can all talk psychic development stuff. You can connect with me and connect with other people who are going along this journey also. But yeah, I will link that down below if you want to join us over there. So yeah, I'm nervous and excited about what this might be. I hope that people are gentle with me, but they're probably not going to be. So it'll be a really interesting learning lesson because it's something that I've always wanted to dive into. So I know I'll probably teach about it once I've kind of been on the other side of reading into the collective. So yeah, wish me luck. And we're going to see what unfolds with all of this. This is definitely a new chapter of my psychic story for sure. And although like I was nervous at the start of recording this, I kind of feel like pumped and ready to go. So I think that's a good sign. I don't feel like, oh shit, I shouldn't record this, I shouldn't put this up. So I think that's a good sign. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Feel free to give this a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Alrighty, bye.